Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. For decades, he had dedicated his life to unraveling the mysteries of consciousness and dreams. Now, at 62, terminal cancer was stealing away his chance to complete his magnum opus. The irony wasn't lost on him. A lifetime studying the nature of the mind, only to have his own body betray him. There has to be a way, he muttered, fingers twitching restlessly at his sides. His latest research into lucid dreaming had yielded fascinating results, hinting at the possibility of profound healing through altered states of consciousness. But time was running out. A gentle knock interrupted his brooding. "How are you feeling today, Dr. Hawthorne?" Nurse Chen asked as she entered, clipboard in hand. "Oh, just peachy," Daniel replied dryly. "Nothing like a little metastatic cancer to brighten one's day." The nurse's lips quirked in a sympathetic smile as she checked his vitals. "Your daughter called again. She's worried about you." Daniel sighed, guilt twisting in his gut. He'd pushed everyone away as his condition worsened, throwing himself into his work with manic desperation. "I'll call her back soon," he lied. As Nurse Chen left, Daniel's gaze fell on the small vial hidden in his toiletry bag. The amber liquid inside represented his last, desperate hope, a potent blend of herbs and compounds known to induce vivid lucid dreams. Combined with sensory deprivation, he theorized it might allow him to access untapped healing potential within his own mind. It was risky, unproven. But what did he have to lose? That night, after the ward had quieted, Daniel carefully removed his IV and monitoring equipment. Every movement sent daggers of pain through his frail body, but determination drove him forward. He changed into loose clothing and retrieved the vial, along with a small device he'd smuggled in, a portable brainwave monitor of his own design. The hospital's hydrotherapy room was rarely used these days. Daniel's trembling hands fumbled with the lock, but soon he was inside. The isolation tank loomed before him, a sleek white pod filled with body-temperature salt water. "Well, here goes nothing," he muttered, measuring out a precise dose of the herbal mixture. He swallowed it quickly, grimacing at the bitter taste. Then, fighting vertigo, he lowered himself into the tank and sealed the hatch. Darkness enveloped him as he floated weightlessly in the saline solution. Daniel focused on his breathing, willing his racing thoughts to calm. As the drugs took effect, reality began to blur at the edges. Swirling patterns danced behind his closed eyelids. "Remember," he told himself, voice echoing strangely in the confined space. "You're dreaming. Take control." The world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of sensations. Daniel felt himself falling, tumbling through layers of consciousness. A bone-deep vibration thrummed through his body. For a moment, blind panic threatened to overwhelm him. But then, silence, stillness. Daniel opened his eyes, blinking in confusion at unfamiliar surroundings. Soft morning light filtered through gauzy curtains. He was lying in a bed, not a hospital bed, but a comfortable queen-size mattress with floral sheets. "What the hell?" he muttered, then froze at the sound of his own voice. It was higher, softer than it should have been. Heart pounding, Daniel sat up and looked down at himself. His breath caught in his throat. Gone was his withered, cancer-ravaged body. Instead, he saw the smooth skin and gentle curves of a woman. This can't be real," he whispered, reaching up to touch his face with trembling hands. Long, dark hair fell around his shoulders. He scrambled out of bed, nearly tripping over unfamiliar legs as he rushed to a full-length mirror on the closet door. The reflection that stared back left him reeling. A beautiful young woman of South Asian descent, probably in her early 20s, gazed at him with wide, frightened eyes. Daniel's mind whirled, struggling to process what he was seeing. "Okay, calm down," he told himself, pacing the unfamiliar bedroom. "This is just a vivid lucid dream. You can control this. Wake up." But no matter how he concentrated, the dream refused to fade. Every sensory detail remained crisp and present. The softness of the carpet under his feet, The scent of jasmine from an oil diffuser, the quiet hum of an air conditioner. A phone buzzed on the nightstand, making him jump. Daniel hesitated, then picked it up. The lock screen showed a smiling selfie of the girl he now appeared to be, along with the name Malaya Patel. Malaya, he murmured, testing the name. A text notification popped up. Hey girl, don't forget we're meeting Zoe for brunch at 11. Can't wait to hear about your date last night. Daniel set the phone down, mind reeling. This was far beyond any lucid dream he'd experienced or studied. The level of detail, the consistent narrative elements. It was as if he'd somehow been transported into another person's life entirely. Think, Daniel, he muttered, resuming his pacing. What exactly did that herbal mixture contain? Could it have triggered some kind of consciousness transfer? The idea was preposterous, flying in the face of everything he thought he knew about the nature of consciousness, and yet the evidence of his senses was undeniable. Somehow, impossibly, he seemed to be inhabiting the body and life of this young woman named Malaya. A knock at the bedroom door made him jump. Malaya, honey, are you up? A woman's voice called. I'm headed to the farmer's market. Do you need anything? Daniel cleared his throat nervously. No thanks. Mom, he called back, cringing at how strange the word felt. I'm good. All right. See you later then. Don't forget your therapy appointment at 2. Footsteps retreated, followed by the sound of a door closing. Daniel let out a shaky breath, looking around the room for clues about his bizarre new reality. Framed photos on the dresser showed Malaya with friends and family, at a graduation ceremony, on a beach vacation, blowing out birthday candles. A stack of psychology textbooks sat on a desk, along with a laptop covered in stickers. Clothes were strewn haphazardly over a chair, and an open closet revealed a colorful array of dresses and shoes. Okay, think this through logically, Daniel told himself, sitting on the edge of the bed. Best case scenario, this is an incredibly vivid lucid dream that you just need to wake up from. Worst case. He trailed off, the implications too staggering to contemplate. The phone buzzed again with another text. Earth to Malaya. You better not be standing us up. See you at Rosie's in 30. Daniel glanced at the time, 10:30 a.m. He had no idea where Rosie's was or who these friends were. But staying here alone with his thoughts seemed like a recipe for panic. When in Rome, he muttered, standing up. He rifled through Malaya's closet, cheeks burning as he changed into a sundress and sandals. The mechanics of putting on a bra nearly defeated him, but he eventually managed. A quick stop in the bathroom to brush teeth and run a comb through long, dark hair completed the transformation. Grabbing the phone and a purse he found hanging by the door, Daniel stepped out into a sunny suburban street. Houses with manicured lawns lined the quiet road. He had no idea where he was going, but a quick search on the phone's Maps app pointed him toward a cafe about 10 minutes away. As he walked, Daniel marveled at the vitality he felt. After months of pain and weakness, the simple act of moving without discomfort was intoxicating. The warm breeze on his skin, the scent of blooming flowers. Every sensation felt new and heightened. Get a hold of yourself, he muttered. You can't just take over this poor girl's life. You need to figure out how to reverse this. Whatever it is. But a small, selfish part of him whispered, Why not? You were dying. Your life was over. This is a second chance. He pushed the thought away as he approached a quaint cafe with a hand-painted sign reading Rosie's. Through the window, he could see 2 young women waving enthusiastically. Taking a deep breath, Daniel stepped inside. There you are, exclaimed a petite blonde, jumping up to hug him. We were starting to think you'd sleep through brunch. Sorry, I overslept, Daniel mumbled, awkwardly returning the hug. Ooh, late night? The other woman, a tall redhead, said with a wink. Come on, spill the details about your date with Aiden. Daniel's mind raced as he slid into the booth. Oh, you know, it was fine. He hedged, grabbing a menu to hide his flustered expression. The blonde, Zoe, he guessed from the earlier text, rolled her eyes. Fine. Girl, you've been crushing on him for months. Give us the juicy details. Maybe Malaya's being a lady, the redhead, whose name he still didn't know, said with a laugh. You know how private she can be? Daniel nodded gratefully. Right, exactly. A lady never kisses and tells, right? His new friends exchanged a look, clearly sensing something was off. Okay, who are you and what have you done with our Malaya? Zoe asked, only half joking. Since when do you talk like a 1950s etiquette book? I'm just not feeling quite myself today, Daniel said weakly. The redhead reached across the table to feel his forehead. You don't have a fever. Is everything okay? You seem really out of it. Daniel took a deep breath, weighing his options. These were clearly close friends of Malaya's, people who knew her well and cared about her. Pretending to be her felt wrong on multiple levels. But how could he possibly explain the truth? Look, he said finally, something really strange has happened to me. I'm not sure I can explain it or that you'd believe me if I tried, but I'm not. I mean, I don't feel like myself right now. The two women exchanged concerned glances. Malaya, you're kind of scaring us, Zoe said gently. Did something happen last night? Did Aiden hurt you? No, nothing like that, Daniel assured them quickly. It's just, God, this is going to sound insane. But I woke up this morning feeling like a completely different person. Like I'm in someone else's body and life. I know that doesn't make any sense. He trailed off, cringing internally at how unhinged he must sound. To his surprise, though, his companions didn't immediately call for a straitjacket. Okay, deep breaths, the redhead said, reaching out to squeeze his hand. Have you ever experienced depersonalization before? It's a dissociative symptom where you feel detached from your body or sense of self. Daniel blinked, impressed despite himself. That's a very informed suggestion, he said. Are you studying psychology too? Both women stared at him. Malaya, I've been your roommate for 2 years, the redhead said slowly. You know I'm in the psych program with you. Right, of course, Daniel mumbled, face burning. Sorry, I told you I'm really out of it today. Maybe we should get you home, Zoe suggested. You can rest, and if you're still feeling this way later, we can take you to the student health center. Daniel nodded gratefully, relieved to escape the awkward situation. As they left the cafe, he made a mental note of the redhead's name, Brianna, when Zoe used it. The walk back to Malaya's house was mercifully short. Daniel's head was spinning as he tried to process everything. The peaceful suburban street now felt surreal, like a movie set. How could this possibly be real? Inside, he headed straight for Malaya's room, mumbling vague thanks to his concerned friends. Alone again, he sank onto the bed, head in his hands. Think, Daniel, he muttered. You're a scientist. Approach this logically. But logic seemed to have little place in his current situation. By all rights, he should be lying in a hospital bed, his body riddled with cancer. Instead, he was inhabiting the healthy, vibrant form of a young woman he'd never met. He got up and paced, mind racing. Was this some kind of elaborate hallucination brought on by the experimental compounds he'd ingested? But everything felt so real, so consistent. And why this specific scenario? He had no connection to this Malaya person, no reason his subconscious would conjure her. The alternative, that he had somehow actually transferred his consciousness into another person's body, was too fantastic to contemplate. And yet, Daniel's gaze fell on the laptop sitting on the desk. Of course. If this was real, there should be evidence of Malaya's life online. With trembling hands, he opened the computer and navigated to her social media accounts. What he found left him reeling. Photos, posts, conversations stretching back years, all painting a vivid picture of a life he knew nothing about. Malaya Patel, 21 years old, psychology student at the local university, animal lover, amateur painter, volunteer at a women's shelter. "This is impossible," he whispered, staring at a recent Instagram post showing Malaya and her friends at a music festival. The level of detail, the sheer volume of information, it went far beyond what his mind could have fabricated. A wave of guilt washed over him. This was a real person, with her own life, dreams, and relationships, and somehow he had usurped her body and identity. Where was the real Malaya now? Was she trapped in his cancer-ridden body back in the isolation tank? The thought made him sick. "I have to fix this," he said aloud, standing up. "I have to find a way back." But even as he said it, a small, selfish voice in the back of his mind whispered, "Do you really want to?" Daniel pushed the thought away, disgusted with himself. And yet, he couldn't deny the vitality he felt in this young, healthy body. The possibilities that stretched out before him were intoxicating after months of staring death in the face. No, he couldn't think that way. Whatever had happened, he had a moral obligation to set things right. But how? He turned back to the laptop, fingers flying over the keys as he began to research. If there was any record of something like this happening before, any scientific explanation for consciousness transfer, he would find it. Hours slipped by as Daniel fell into a familiar pattern of intense focus. He barely noticed as the room darkened around him, the autumn sun setting outside the window. His mind buzzed with theories and possibilities, each more outlandish than the last. A knock at the door jolted him out of his research trance. "Malaya? Honey, are you okay?" It was the woman he'd heard earlier, Malaya's mother. "You missed your therapy appointment and your friends said you weren't feeling well." Daniel cursed under his breath. He'd completely lost track of time. "I'm fine," he called back. "Just not feeling great. Think I might be coming down with something?" There was a pause. "Can I come in?" He hesitated, then sighed. "Sure." The door opened, and a middle-aged Indian woman entered, concern etched on her face. "Oh, sweetheart, you look exhausted," she said, moving to feel Daniel's forehead. "No fever, at least. Have you eaten anything today?" Daniel blinked, realizing he hadn't. No. Guess I forgot." Malaya's mother clucked disapprovingly. "I'll heat up some of last night's curry for you, and maybe you should think about rescheduling that date tonight if you're not feeling well." "Date?" Daniel asked, confused. "With Aiden? You've been talking about it all week." She gave him a strange look. "Are you sure you're all right? You seem off." Daniel forced a smile. "Just tired, I think. You're right. I should probably cancel." After she left, he slumped back in the chair, mind whirling. A date with someone named Aiden, who Malaya apparently had feelings for. The idea of navigating a romantic encounter in this stolen body made him deeply uncomfortable. He found Malaya's phone and located Aiden in her contacts. Swallowing his discomfort, he typed out a message. "Hey, not feeling great today. Rain check on tonight." The reply came almost immediately. "No worries, feel better. How about Saturday instead?" Daniel stared at the phone, unsure how to respond. By Saturday, he told himself firmly, he would have figured out how to reverse whatever had happened. He had to. "Sounds good," he typed back, then set the phone aside. The delicious smell of curry wafted up the stairs, making Daniel's stomach growl. As unsettling as this situation was, he couldn't deny that his new body had very real needs. He made his way downstairs, bracing himself for more interaction with Malaya's family. Malaya's mother had set a place for him at the kitchen table. "Here you go, Beta," she said, placing a steaming plate in front of him. "Eat up. You'll feel better." Daniel took a bite, flavor exploding on his tongue. After months of hospital food and dulled taste buds, it was like experiencing curry for the first time. "This is amazing," he said with genuine enthusiasm. Her mother beamed. "I'm glad you're feeling better. You had me worried earlier. You seemed so confused and out of sorts." Guilt twisted in Daniel's stomach. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I didn't mean to worry you. I just didn't feel like myself." She reached out to squeeze his hand. I know things have been difficult since your father passed, but you've been doing so well lately. I'm proud of you, Beta." Daniel nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The depth of love and concern in this woman's eyes for her daughter, for Malaya, was overwhelming. He felt like an imposter, stealing these moments that didn't belong to him. After dinner, he retreated back to Malaya's room, mind churning. The more he experienced of her life, the more real she became to him. This wasn't just some abstract ethical dilemma. He was actively harming a real person and her loved ones by continuing this charade. "I have to fix this," he muttered, returning to the laptop. "No matter what it takes." As the night wore on, Daniel's research grew increasingly esoteric. He delved into fringe theories of consciousness, obscure spiritual practices, even accounts of near-death experiences. Anything that might offer a clue about how to reverse what had happened. Around 3 a.m., his tired eyes landed on a forum post that made his heart race. Someone claiming to have experienced a similar phenomenon, waking up in another person's body, described using meditation and sensory deprivation to trigger a snap back to their original form. It was a long shot, but it was the closest thing to a lead he'd found. Daniel's scientific mind rebelled against the lack of empirical evidence, but he was running out of options. He needed to find a way to recreate the conditions of his original transfer as closely as possible. With new determination, he began to plan. He would need access to an isolation tank, for starters, and ideally, some of the herbal compounds he'd used in his original experiment. It wouldn't be easy to arrange, especially in this unfamiliar body and life, but he had to try. As dawn broke, Daniel finally collapsed into bed, exhausted but resolute. Tomorrow, he would begin putting his plan into action. One way or another, he would find his way back to his own body and give Malaya back the life he had inadvertently stolen. But as he drifted off to sleep, a small part of him couldn't help but wonder, what if it didn't work? What if he was truly trapped in this new life? The possibilities, both thrilling and terrifying, swirled in his mind as consciousness faded. In his dreams, two lives intertwined, the brilliant but dying scientist and the young woman with her whole future ahead of her. Somewhere between those two realities lay the truth of who he was now and who he might become. When Daniel awoke the next morning, for a blissful moment he forgot the bizarre situation he found himself in. Then reality came crashing back as he opened his eyes to Malaya's sunny bedroom. "Right," he muttered, sitting up and running a hand through long dark hair. Another day in the Twilight Zone. He dressed quickly in jeans and a t-shirt he found in Malaya's closet, trying not to dwell on the strangeness of inhabiting this unfamiliar body. There was work to be done. Downstairs, he found a note from Malaya's mother saying she'd gone to work early. Daniel breathed a sigh of relief, grateful to avoid another awkward interaction. He made a quick breakfast, marveling again at how good everything tasted with young, healthy taste buds. As he ate, he pulled out Malaya's phone and began searching for sensory deprivation spas in the area. To his surprise, there were several options within driving distance, but booking a session would require money, something he wasn't sure he had access to in this borrowed life. He found Malaya's wallet in her purse and examined the contents: student ID, driver's license, a few loyalty cards for coffee shops, and a debit card. Daniel bit his lip, weighing the ethics of using Malaya's money for his plan. But what choice did he have? After agonizing over it, he booked a 90-minute float session for that afternoon. The $85 charge made him wince, but he promised himself he'd find a way to pay Malaya back when he returned to his own body. Next, he turned his attention to recreating the herbal mixture he'd used in his original experiment. Some of the ingredients were common enough. He should be able to find them at a health food store. But others were more obscure. He might have to get creative. As he made a shopping list, Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. "Feeling any better today? We missed you at yoga this morning." He grimaced, having completely forgotten about Malaya's normal routine. "Sorry, still not 100%. he typed back. Rain check, Zoe's reply came quickly. No worries, let me know if you need anything. Oh, and don't forget, we're helping at the shelter tomorrow morning. Daniel's stomach dropped. He'd been so focused on his plan to return to his own body, he hadn't considered the commitments Malaya might have. Volunteering at a women's shelter was exactly the kind of thing he couldn't fake his way through. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, he muttered, grabbing his keys. First things first, he needed to gather supplies for his transfer attempt. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Daniel drove Malaya's car, grateful for muscle memory as he navigated unfamiliar streets, to several shops, collecting herbs and supplements. He also picked up some basic chemistry equipment, beakers, a hot plate, digital scale. The clerk at the science supply store gave him an odd look, but didn't comment. By early afternoon, he had everything he needed. Back at Malaya's house, he carefully mixed the herbal blend, following his original formula as closely as possible from memory. The pungent scent filled the kitchen, making him wrinkle his nose. I really hope this works, he muttered, pouring the mixture into a small vial. He glanced at the clock, just enough time to get to his float session appointment. The sensory deprivation spa was housed in a converted Victorian home, all soothing colors and new age decor. A serene-looking receptionist greeted him with a warm smile. First-time floater? She asked as Daniel signed in. He nodded, not trusting himself to elaborate. Don't worry, it's a very relaxing experience, she assured him. Just remember to shower before entering the tank and try to let go of any expectations. Everyone's float is unique. Daniel managed a tight smile as she led him to a private room. Inside was a sleek white pod, similar to the one he'd used in the hospital. His heart raced as he prepared himself, showering quickly and changing into the provided robe. Standing before the tank, vial of herbal mixture clutched in his hand, Daniel took a deep breath. This was it, his best chance at setting things right. He downed the bitter liquid in one gulp, grimacing at the taste. Here goes nothing, he muttered and climbed into the tank. As the hatch closed above him, Daniel was enveloped in total darkness and silence. The water, dense with Epsom salts, kept him effortlessly afloat. He focused on his breathing, trying to quiet his racing thoughts. Time seemed to lose all meaning in the isolation tank. Daniel wasn't sure if minutes or hours had passed when he began to feel the effects of the herbal mixture. A tingling sensation spread through his body, followed by a feeling of weightlessness beyond just the physical floating. He concentrated on the memory of his own body, frail and ravaged by cancer, but his, on the life he'd left behind, on his research, his colleagues, his family, everything that made him who he was. The boundary between consciousness and unconsciousness began to blur. Daniel felt himself drifting, spinning through infinite space. Flashes of memory, both his and Malaya's, flickered through his mind. For a moment, he thought he felt it happening, that same sensation of falling through layers of reality that he'd experienced during the original transfer. His heart soared with hope. But then, nothing. Daniel opened his eyes, blinking in the dim light of the flotation room. He was still in Malaya's body. Damn it, he muttered, climbing out of the tank on shaky legs. Disappointment and frustration washed over him as he showered and dressed. The spa receptionist smiled at him as he left. How was your float? Fine, Daniel said shortly, not in the mood for small talk. He hurried out to Malaya's car, mind already racing with other possibilities to try. Back at the house, he threw himself into research once again. There had to be something he was missing, some key element that would unlock the secret of consciousness transfer. He barely noticed as evening fell, the room growing dark around him. A knock at the door made him jump. Malaya, can I come in? It was Malaya's mother again. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. Sure, he called. She entered, brow furrowed with concern. Sweetheart, are you sure you're all right? You've barely left your room in 2 days. Daniel forced a smile. I'm fine, just working on a project. She didn't look convinced. You know you can talk to me about anything, right? If something's bothering you? The genuine love and worry in her eyes made Daniel's chest ache with guilt. He was an imposter, stealing these moments of maternal affection that belonged to someone else. I know, he said softly. I'm okay, really. Just need some time to figure some things out. She nodded, but hesitated in the doorway. All right, but please don't isolate yourself, Beta. Your friends are worried about you too. Maybe you should call Zoe or Brianna. Get out of the house for a bit. After she left, Daniel slumped in his chair, overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to throw himself into Malaya's life, to experience the warmth of her relationships, the potential of her youth. But he knew it would be wrong. This wasn't his life to live. And yet, what if he truly was trapped here? The thought sent a chill through him. How long could he keep up this charade before Malaya's loved ones realized something was terribly wrong? He glanced at the phone, considering his mother's suggestion. Maybe talking to Malaya's friends would give him some insight, some clue he was missing. And if he was honest with himself, the idea of human connection was tempting after days of isolation and stress. Before he could talk himself out of it, he picked up the phone and dialed Zoe's number. Malaya, I was just thinking about you. Zoe's cheerful voice answered. How are you feeling? Better, Daniel said, surprised to find it wasn't entirely a lie. Listen, I was wondering if you wanted to grab coffee or something. I could use some company. Of course. Want to meet at the Grind in 20 minutes? Daniel agreed, grateful for the easy acceptance. As he drove to the coffee shop, he tried to calm his nerves. He just needed to act natural, let Zoe do most of the talking. Maybe he'd pick up some useful information about Malaya's life. The Grind was a cozy cafe near the university campus, filled with students hunched over laptops. Zoe waved from a corner table as Daniel entered. He took a deep breath and made his way over. I'm so glad you're feeling better, Zoe said as he sat down. We were starting to think you'd turned into a hermit or something. Daniel managed a weak laugh. Yeah, sorry about that. Just needed some time to process some things. Zoe's expression turned sympathetic. Is this about your dad? I know the anniversary is coming up next month. Daniel blinked, caught off guard. I guess that's part of it, he said carefully. Oh, honey. Zoe reached across the table to squeeze his hand. I know how hard that is for you. But you've come so far in your healing journey. Your dad would be so proud of you. Emotion welled up in Daniel's chest. Not his own grief, but an echo of Malaya's pain. He looked down, fighting back tears he didn't fully understand. Thanks, he managed. It's just been a lot to deal with lately. Zoe nodded. I get it. Is that why things have been weird with Aiden? Brianna said your date the other night was kind of a disaster. Daniel's head snapped up. What? I thought I canceled that date. Zoe gave him a strange look. No? You went out with him on Saturday, remember? Bree said you were acting super weird and left early. Panic rose in Daniel's throat. He'd been so focused on his transfer attempts, he'd lost track of the days. Had he sleepwalked through an entire date without realizing it? Right, of course, he said weakly. Sorry, my brain is just scrambled lately. Zoe's concern was evident. Malaya, what's really going on? You haven't been yourself at all this week. Are you having episodes again? Do you need to talk to Dr. Patel? Daniel's mind raced, trying to piece together the implications. Episodes? A doctor? There was clearly more going on with Malaya than he'd realized. I'm okay, he said, forcing a smile. Just working through some stuff, but I appreciate you looking out for me. Zoe didn't seem entirely convinced, but she let it drop. As they continued talking, Daniel carefully probed for more information about Malaya's life. Each new detail made him feel simultaneously more connected to and distant from the young woman whose body he inhabited. By the time they said goodbye, Daniel's head was spinning. He drove back to Malaya's house in a daze, overwhelmed by everything he'd learned. Inside, he went straight to Malaya's room and booted up her laptop. This time, he delved deeper into her personal files and emails, searching for answers. What he found left him reeling. Medical records detailing a history of dissociative episodes and depression. Therapy notes discussing unresolved grief over her father's death. Journal entries that painted a picture of a young woman struggling to find her place in the world. "Oh, Malaya," he whispered, a lump forming in his throat. "I'm so sorry." In that moment, the full weight of what he'd done crashed down on him. He hadn't just stolen a body. He'd stolen a life. A complex, painful, beautiful life that he had no right to inhabit. With shaking hands, he closed the laptop. He had to fix this, no matter what it took. Malaya deserved to have her life back, to continue her journey of healing and growth. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.